non-fiction writers. Translators, adapters, script writers, magazine and journal article writers, as well as editors in all genres who live in 115 different countries. We also campaign and lobby on matters important to writers, both nationally and internationally, to support, protect and promote authors' rights. To do this, we have an all-party writers group, the APWG, which ALCS helped establish in 2007. This allows MPs and peers to hear opinions from both inside and outside Parliament. This keeps government and opposition parties up to date on policy issues. We also lobby for writers' interests along with other writers' organisations, such as the Society of Authors. ALCS also works with the International Authors Forum, the IAF, where organisations worldwide, at present 67, can share information and discuss issues affecting them. Sorry, bear with me. Okay. So what are secondary royalties? In brief, it's when a third party uses a work which is available to the public, such as photocopying in schools, lending in libraries, or retransmission of UK TV signals, or recording of TV programmes in the case of scriptwriters. Secondary royalties are paid to writers via ALCS. We do not, however, collect royalties from UK library lending. These payments are made by PLR, and primary rights, such as sales of books, are dealt with by your publisher. I'll now show you a short video explaining where the money comes from, and then hand you over to my colleague Louisa, who will explain in more detail.
Thanks, Pallavi. Good morning, everyone. So where does the money come from? We've got two main types of income for book writers. Firstly, money generated from the Copyright Licensing Agency, which accounts for around 60% of the ALCS income and is owned by ALCS and PLS, Publishers Licensing Services. The money is generated through licenses for businesses, educational institutions, and government agencies. The other main source of income we have is for the overseas public lending right, which includes most EU countries, some examples being Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Estonia, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. Next slide, please. ALCS also collects royalties for articles published in UK journals and magazines. These royalties are also generated by the CLA's licensing scheme. Money for journals and magazines is distributed on a claims-based scheme, so authors have to register their published articles in order to receive compensation for their secondary use. The income is generated from the licenses sold to institutions such as universities, colleges, government bodies, and businesses. So here's a little bit more detail about the articles scheme. It includes articles published in UK-based magazines and journals in the last 3 years. So we're currently collecting from 2019 onwards. All publications should have a valid ISSN number, and we don't collect for newspapers or supplements in newspapers. Members receive payments for their articles being available to copy rather than the actual articles being copied themselves. And we categorise journals and magazines by subject matter and have a fund available for each category. For example, education, business and administrative studies, humanities, general science, and medicine. As I said before, writers have to make a claim for their articles in order to receive the payment for them. Next slide, please. So we have a few other sources of income as well. We collect money for script writers for the retransmission of all scripted works broadcast on TV and radio, for educational recording, private copying, and some other small miscellaneous income sources. Next slide, please. ALCS has also started collecting for visual contributions in 2017. The scheme is open to existing ALCS members, and it covers all images included in UK published books, magazines and journals that have a valid ISBN or ISSN number. They can have been published at any time, but members must own the copyright to the image, and they cannot also be a member of the DAX payback scheme. Newspapers and newspaper supplements aren't included in this scheme either. What we collect for are illustrations, paintings, drawings, photographs, diagrams, and charts. Next slide. What our visual contribution scheme doesn't cover is maps, tables, screenshots of computer programs, or images which have been chosen by the member but which they don't own the copyright for. Next slide, please. And finally, we also make payments for author share, which is a new ALCS scheme that pays members royalties based on the sale of their used books bought from the online second-hand retailers, worldofbooks.com and bookbarninternational.com. The author share payments are made to members twice a year in our biannual distributions in March and September. Thank you, and back to Pallavi.
Thank you, Louisa. So how do we let our authors know that we've collected secondary royalties for them? Well, we have our very own detective agency, so to speak. We have 2 members of staff who track down writers for whom we've collected royalties. The aim being to get them to join ALCS to collect the royalties. They adhere to a stringent due diligence process and are a resilient pair. If at first they don't manage to get an author signed up or don't get a response, they will keep trying again and again. Being a small team, we look for high earners first. However, if you're not a member and you'd like to know if we've collected any money for you already, you can use our royalty search tool online to find out. Contacting authors directly is how many of our authors hear about us. In fact, 43% of new members were contacted directly by ALCS in this financial year. The rest mainly hear about us via word of mouth or recommendation, as well as through other organisations that they may have an affiliation with, such as the Society of Authors and other writers' organisations. The author researchers also search via the internet on social media, such as Twitter and LinkedIn, via a publisher or an agent, or through co-authors. So what's the cost of joining? Our lifetime membership is £36, and as a not-for-profit organisations, our running costs are funded by a 9.5% commission charged on royalties paid out. However, if you're already a member of any of these union-affiliated organisations, the initial membership fee is waived. So what's in it for you? You may be paid in one or both of our twice-yearly distributions, usually March and September. You'll definitely get paid in one as long as you have an ISBN credited to your record. You can access our secure members area of the website and manage your account online. You'll be invited to ALCS events such as our AGM and any other events that may take place in your area. We held our first virtual AGM in 2020. You can stand or vote in elections for the ALCS board for a maximum of 2 terms of 3 years consecutively, then you have to stand down for at least a year. You'll receive our monthly e-newsletter containing articles of interest to members. So how to join? Well, there are a couple of ways to do this. Registering via our website is the quickest and easiest way, and you'll get access to our members area to log in and start updating all your works. You can also download the application form via the website. I'll just briefly touch on some other organisations that collect monies that you may also wish to consider joining. These are PLR, the Public Lending Rights, and DACS, the Design and Artist Copyright Society. ALCS and PLR are predominantly for writers. DACS, however, collects only for visual arts works, for photographers, fine art artists, illustrators, sculptors, and cartoonists, to name a few. They also collect for secondary usage, such as photocopying. So finally, do please join if you're not already a member, and tell your friends, family, and colleagues about us. And check online, as we may have some monies waiting for you. That concludes our presentation this morning, and I hope that we've answered some of your questions, and thank you for listening. If you have any further questions, Louisa and I will be very happy to answer them, and we can also make... Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really great. There are a couple of questions. If people want to unmute themselves and ask their questions, they can do that. Or I can read them out.
I'm happy to read out mine.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, I'm Sue Bradley. I write about food and gardening mainly in national magazines. I've found now that some magazines I write for send over lots of legal documents asking me to sort of sign before I send my article to say that, you know, I'm happy for them to have all rights to my work. Would that stop me from being able to make a claim for an article that I've written?
It wouldn't necessarily. So you can still claim for works which you don't own the copyright to. But what you would need to do is just make sure that your publisher is happy with that. So just email them or call them to find out. So what we pay is like a dedicated author's share. So that's money publishers would never get because they get their own share through PLS for the same works. Right. So generally there shouldn't be any reason why they wouldn't be happy for you to receive the ALCS income. But yeah, we would just say to check with them directly, and if you've got any questions, get in touch.
I have done that with one of my editors and he's given me the go ahead. So I was just wondering about the others. So that's
yeah, we don't usually have too many people come back after they've asked about that and explained that the publisher isn't missing out in any way. So.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
Barbara, do you want to read your question out?
Sure. I just missed the slide about the membership organisations that you listed. I think there were 3 or 4. And I wondered if you might be able to put them in the chat. It would be lovely.
Yes, let me just...
How do you join the author share scheme, or how do you take part in that?
So if you become a member of ALCS and register your books, you'd automatically be in the author share scheme. So basically author share send us the data about which books they've got royalties for the sales of. And if that book's on your account, the royalty would just automatically go on there. So you don't have to do anything else. It's just joining ALCS and register all your books. And that's something that's automatically included.
Thanks. I am already a member of ALCS, I think through the Society of Authors, which I think is one of your member organisations. But I hadn't heard about the author share scheme, so I would like to do that. And I've just got one other bitty question, and that is, I've recently written a foreword to a book that's being published in March, but the book is not my original work, but the foreword is. Is there any sort of claim that I can make?
No, so we don't pay for introductions or forwards. It's just if you've written a chapter in a book, you could claim for that, but yeah, not a forward.
Okay, thanks.
I've got another quick question. Is that all right?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
I also write for a regional magazine. I'd need to check if it's got an ISN number, but if it did, would I be able to claim for articles that are in there?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So any magazine or journal that's got an ISSN and is UK based, you can claim for your articles in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to just say it's a great organisation. I think I've had several £1,000s over the years from ACAL. I always get the initials the wrong way around. ALCS. It's really confusing. On the comment you made, Sue, I mean, I'm basically semi-retired now, and the stuff I do is usually for free for things I deem worthy. But when I was writing, I always tried to make sure I only sold First British serial rights and never the copyright. That's become much more difficult as publishers have paid hardball and claim everything nowadays forever, everywhere in the universe. If at all possible, resist it, and always use the Society of Authors legal people to argue contracts. I'm just having a book republished that we did 25 years ago. And I did a lot of arguing with the contract, and we got a lot of changes, and we stopped them getting rights for everything. So that's really important. And if you do photographs, it's really important, as you saw from that slide, don't give them the copyright, because then, and it took me ages to go through all the things I'd ever written. I was looking it up and I kind of made a list and then I filled it in. It took me a couple of days, but it probably earned me quite a few £100. So
Yes.
it's worth the effort, but it's a bit tedious at times.
Yeah.
I was just going to
backwards.
say, I imagine that you all have a lot of copyright of your images in your articles and publications. So it's a great way to get that extra money through our visual contribution scheme.
Yes, if you do. What's really difficult now is academic publications, because I won't publish in anything that isn't open access, and I've just refused to publish an article in an academic journal on ethics, would you believe, but they want it all and I won't do it. I've put it up for free. It's really difficult now. The publishers have become very grabbing.
But
So
I think that's a really good point about if you're not already a member of the Society of Authors, they really are great for giving advice on contracts, and we do this presentation to a lot of their new members as well. So there's a lot of overlap.
Say that we can only put articles onto the site up to 3 years ago. So because I've been a bit lax about the past, but it's too late to put anything up that's prior to that.
For articles, yes, you can add books from any time, but as the article scheme, it's like a claims-based system. So you just get one payment per article, and the money comes in yearly cycles. So once the pot's been paid out for articles, that's it. Whereas books continue to generate the revenue, even if they're really old, they could still come up. So yeah.
I think one question I've had, how do you decide how much each of us gets? Now, you mentioned 60% came from books, and a lot of my stuff will be in university libraries. Universities have these global arrangements, you know, to access all these different things.
Well, it's so complicated. It depends on the work. So for books, that is revenue from the CLA. So they sell the licenses to like schools or universities, and that's not for lending, like library lending. That's dealt with by PLR. What it's for is if a book is photocopied or scanned, that they get that data, and then you're due a small royalty for the book. So they do that by sample surveys. So they survey the institutions they've sold licenses to. So if your book comes up, then you get the royalty for that. But with articles, it's based on a number of things. So it's a yearly pot of money, and it gets divided depending on how many articles you've claimed for, your word count, the classification of the journal. So yeah, that gets worked out based on all those different factors. So it can vary from year to year. And that's similar for visual contributions. I think that's a yearly pot. It depends how many claims we've got in the year, and the type of work they're in as well.
And sometimes you get new people joining your scheme or giving, because once I got £1,000 plus, and I actually rang up and said, can this be right? And I think they said yes, because we've had these new pots of money coming in. Are you still expanding?
Yeah, I think constantly looking for different revenue streams. I think I think last year was a record year, wasn't it, Pallavi, for what we paid out. So I think each year we're paying out more and more, but we do have more and more members as well. So
And I think the data we're getting back from a lot of our sources is actually is more detailed and accurate. So we're actually able to pass on that to the actual member with that particular ISBN. So I think in previous years, Louisa, we may not have had as much detailed. So that's why a lot of members then got what we call miscellaneous payments. So that's monies where we've not actually been able to allocate to a specific ISBN work. So our data is improving as well.
Thank you so much. That's been really informative, certainly for me. And I've been a member for a long time, and I clearly need to sit down and do what Jeff does and write a whole long list to get more out of it. But yeah, that was so useful. And just to let everyone know, Pallavi has shared the presentation with us, so I will send it to Kim, our administrator. I'm not sure what she'll do with it, but if you want to see it, we'll figure that bit out further along the line. Does anyone else have any more questions before we wrap up? No, everyone happy? Thank you so much, Pallavi and Louisa. That was really useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
You clarified, once you're a member, you're always a member. That's
right.
Yes.
And we don't have an annual subscription, so you pay a one-off joining fee and that's it. But if you're a member of the other organisations I've listed, we waive the membership fee.
Great, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again in person, and we'll bring some food for you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us again.
You're very welcome. Have a lovely day, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.